Steven Universe, one of Cartoon Network's most popular shows, airing from 2013 until eventually coming to an end in 2019. But within that timeline, the show had many games released, the best of which a trilogy of games that first starts with Steven Universe Attack the Light, a mobile RPG where Steven, Pearl, Garnet, and Amethyst venture through different areas, battling enemies, collecting loot, and leveling up. But sadly, a few years back, this game got delisted and became unavailable. Fortunately though, I was able to get access to it. So today, my goal is to completely 100% it, collecting every badge, 100%ing all 5 areas, and defeating the final boss, White Light, in order to protect the world. Oh, and quickly, before we begin, about 88% of people who watch my videos aren't actually subscribed, so if you end up enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It's free and you can always change your mind later. Okay, that's enough yapping. Let's begin. The game starts off with a cutscene where we see Steven playing some sort of mobile RPG on his touchscreen device, and he mentions how he's going to play it non-stop, but then the gems appear and he throws the game away, completely mesmerized by whatever Garnet was holding in her hands. And Pearl describes it as an ancient gem weapon that could be used to command an entire army of light. So then Steven asks if he can hold it, and at first Pearl replies with no, but then she mentions that it's only dangerous in the hands of a powerful gem, so in the hands of Steven Universe it should be fine. And they ended up giving it to him, leading to this. Be careful.
Steven, stay back. Oh no! Now the light creatures are loose in the world! We must work together to track them down and return them to the prism!
4 heroes, teaming up for a magic adventure. This is like the greatest RPG ever!
And that leads us to here, where if we swipe right, we'll see the different areas on a map like I originally mentioned, which the first one seemed to be a cave setting where we ran into our first enemy, scorpions. And Pearl describes them as inordinary, as it was just a light from the prison taking the form of a scorpion, which then Garnet guides us saying that we must exterminate these creatures, and so beginning our first battle, which was of course the tutorial that showed us how the attacks worked. And basically each character has their own different abilities that you can choose and then use on the targets or on the characters themselves if they benefit them. Though if you look at the screen, you'll see when you're doing a normal attack, if you tap at the right time, you can actually do a bonus attack within the normal attack. And this is actually a very important mechanic because you literally do double the damage if you tap at the right time. And that star appears literally every time you attack. Like for example, when we've performed Amethyst's attack, which hits every single enemy against us, you'll see that a star appears on all the enemies. But then after using this attack, the game mentions that using those abilities took star points, which now after using those 2 abilities we had 0 of. So now it's time to end our turn. And just like how there's a star when you're attacking, there's also a star when you're defending. And if you time it correctly, you take a lot less damage. And this is also very important because you can literally make or break some of the battles. Oh, and then now that it's our turn again, if you look at the top left, you'll see we have 5 stars. And this is basically how many stars you start off with at the beginning of each turn. But that number can change in some different ways, but I'll mention that a little later on. Because as for now, you'll see that I used one of Steven's attacks, and he's more of just a supportive character in this game. He can't really do damage, but he keeps your team healed and protected throughout the battles. And that was the gist of the instructions within this battle. So after a few more attacks, we took down both of the scorpions, obtaining some XP for all of our characters, and moved on to the next section, which in this game, all you have to do is just swipe left and right, which the next section you'll see had a treasure chest for us. And these treasure chests are basically what give us most of the loot that we obtain in the game. There are some other ways, which you'll see here shortly, but I'd say that the treasure chests are the main ones. But with that, as I swiped up, it seemed that this stage had now been 100% completed, and using the teleportation pad, we teleported to stage 1-2, where there's still a lot of things being explained, with the first one being this light barrier, which if you look closely would only be unlocked with a purple key. Oh, and you won't see me mention all of it, but Steven and the gems do have a lot of dialogue between each other throughout the game, and the dialogue is usually just stuff I'm already going to be explaining, and sometimes it leads to a very simple quiz-like thing, where if we answer correctly, the gem that we're talking to gains some experience and harmony. harmony. And that harmony word that I just mentioned there is very important, which I'll explain when the time is right. But for now, we'd initiated another battle, this time with 3 purple scorpions. And if you remember from the chest we'd opened, we'd actually gotten an item, and those items can actually be used within the battle. And the specific item we got this time was like this star boost, which if we use it, gives us 3 bonus stars for the turn. Oh, and another important thing that kind of comes into play way later on is that you can only use 1 item per turn. And that's a very important feature because if you're able to just spam items on the first turn, none of the opponents would literally stand any chance. But now with that out of the way, I started dealing damage to the opponents using Garnet's basic attack, which defeating the first opponent dropped a +1 star, giving me 1 more star to use within the turn. And you're probably noticing here that I'm spamming Garnet's ability over and over again, and that was mostly because it seemed to be the one that was the most worth it for its cost at the time. But this does quickly change a little later on when we start leveling up some characters. But for now, we'd obtained another item from that battle, and leaving the battle, the game wanted to show us that we can actually use some of the items outside of the battle. And most of the time, it's just items that restore HP, or as they call it in this game, Harmony. And there's actually a reason that it's called Harmony and not just straight up HP, because there are some other factors regarding Harmony that are important. But again, like I already mentioned, I'll mention it when the time is right. As for now, we'd found another chest open, which we didn't get anything too impressive from, just another healing item. And then we headed to the right where we ran into a new enemy. And these guys were just prism light bats, which one of them I was actually able to take down on the very first turn, leaving only one that we had to deal with, but it also had very low HP. And the difference with the bats was that their defensive star was very hard to time because they attacked very quickly. And I'm not gonna lie, within the first area of this game, I was very horrendous with doing the defensive stars, but I did quickly get better. And more importantly, after this battle, we'd actually leveled up Garnet, which unlocked a new move named the Shield Breaker. And this is probably one of the most important moves in the game, which you will see why later. But for now, we made it to the right of the cavern where we ran into a pile of dirt that was shining, and clicking on it, we actually got the purple key we're looking for, or if you want to be more specific, indigo. And after heading back, I clicked on the gate and it opened up. But this wasn't the end. As we moved right, there were still more enemies that we had to face. This time, a combination of 2 scorpions and 1 bat in the back. And of course, since the bat was the bigger threat, it was my first target to take down, using one of Garnet's moves, and then using the 3 remaining stars on Amethyst's move to take down the bat while also doing damage to the scorpions. And then as we had to defend, I did miss my star on the first attack, but then the game thought that I'd forgotten about the stars, so it showed me the tutorial again and auto-blocked for me, which then led to the attacking phase where I used one of the moves from Garnet to take the first scorpion down. And then of course, the second move was the same exact thing, leading to our victory and some more experience gained. And the chest behind the enemies also got me 2 star fruit, which then we headed up, having completed the stage 100%, teleporting to stage 1-3, where Steven first mentions it's like we're in an RPG, and then Pro asks what an RPG is. So then Steven explains to them what an RPG is, and that was kind of that whole dialogue, which then running upwards, we run into the snail looking enemy, and this guy looked a little bit more tough as it's covered by some weird rocks, and Steven felt the same exact way. But then Garnet comes in saying leave it to me, which this is where that shield break ability comes in very handy, because using it, you can actually take off the armor of a bunch of different enemies throughout the entire game. And not only does it take its armor off, it also lowers their defense. And then you might have seen there was like a charge bar when I did the attack, and if you get perfectly in the darkish pink area, you deal extra damage. So it's a very overpowered move if used correctly. But looking back at the battle, using some normal attacks, we took down the enemy, which got us a level up on Pearl, where here she didn't learn a new move, but we could actually raise a stat being attack, luck, or harmony. And for now, I didn't really know what the best one to choose was, so I just chose attack because you couldn't really go wrong with it. But then exploring a little more, I ran into this weird brown statue looking thing with 3 podiums on the ground, and after deciding to give it a little tap, we saw the statue form a prism shining light onto the podiums where 3 different items appeared. And if you look at the bottom right, you'll see that we actually have a currency that we've been gaining from defeating enemies, and this exactly is where we use the currency, as this brown statue is a shop that appears in basically every level, allowing us to buy different items from it. But for now, I didn't know if those items up there were actually a good investment, so I just left it alone. Moving through the cave where we got ambushed by another scorpion and a new enemy, which is like a mole. And the mole was actually very annoying as it acted like a Diglett from Pokemon, where it had this dig attack where it went underground and we couldn't attack it for that round. So then we had to wait for the defending phase where it did its attack and then came out of the ground, which then was when we could finally deal damage to it. And after a couple of attacks, we took it down, this time getting enough experience to level up Amethyst. And her level up gained her a second attack named the Dual Strike, which I'm not gonna lie, we basically never use. And that statement kind of stays true for Amethyst throughout basically the entire game, because the other 2, being Garnet and Pro, were just much better. But moving on, we ran into another part that had another light barrier, but if you look to the left, you'll see that there's this light glowing from the wall, and moving towards that light we actually found a secret room, and these super secret rooms exist within every level, so we'd have to keep an eye out for them from now on, as they are a requirement for getting the full 100%. And at first, we opened the chest which gave us the key for the light barrier, but then of course there's the elephant in the room being that middle part, which after standing on, you regain full health for all of your characters, so that can come handy from time to time. But I should mention that healing thing isn't in every single super secret room, and it only appears here and there. Oh, and looking at the screen, you'll see that we found another treasure chest, this time containing a moon goddess badge, and these badges are a pretty cool feature of the game. And to put the badges into play, you have to press the menu button on the top left, which shows you your selection of all the badges that you have, and clicking on the badge you can see exactly what it does, which this one increases the gem's defense against blue or indigo enemies. And of course I would have liked to place this one on Garnet, but for some reason she couldn't apply this one, so I just chose Pearl instead. Though this isn't too big of a deal, as that badge isn't very good and we get a ton more very quickly. But more importantly, we now run into our first 4 enemy battle, and the first enemy I chose to attack was the snail with the defensive thing, but this turned out not to be the correct move, as I didn't fully defeat it on the first turn, which in return allows it to attack one of my characters, and we actually would have been better off attacking either the scorpion or the bat and defeating them, so they had one less thing that they could attack with. But of course this still is the very beginning of the game and isn't a big deal, though I did still want to mention it as it sort of points out some of the strategy that goes into the battles. And eventually we took down the last opponent, and this time we had enough experience that Steven Universe himself leveled up, unlocking a move named the Bubble Shield, which this is the most overpowered move in the game, and without it this game would literally be like 5 times more difficult. Oh, and by the description you could probably already tell what it does, but of course if you're unsure I will be showing it off in battle later on. And for now I made it to stage 1-4, which was the last stage before our very first boss battle, and moving upwards we ran into this weird looking wall that seemed like it had these 3 different pieces that we needed to put into it to open it up. And after getting the explanation from the gems, we made our way through the cavern, taking down the different enemies until eventually running into this area where we found one of the gems in a wall, but that was only one of 2, so we still needed to find those guys. In our venture we found a little room with 3 different chests, all giving me some various items, and then I ran upwards into a room, seeing a light glowing to the left, which entering the light we found another super secret room, which out of the chest in the room we got another badge named the Ember badge. And this badge was pretty cool because it gave the attacker a chance to burn the enemies. The only enemies it couldn't burn were blue and red ones, and that downside didn't really affect us in these caves as all of the enemies we're going against were indigo. So maneuvering a little more through the cave, we found this weird statue that was broken down, and within it we found our second gem. And this wasn't like a lucky thing where I randomly knew to just check there. The statue was actually glowing, hinting to us that there was an item within it. Oh, there's also this shop which I see but I don't buy anything yet, though I did notice a 100 cost XP badge, and that definitely caught my eye. But for now I only had 66 gems and decided to try and get to 100, which moving around we found more enemies, this time who were guarding a chest, and that chest seemed like it had something important for us in there. So after defeating the enemies and getting a level up on Pearl, which gave her an attack named the Spear Throw, we ran over to open the chest, and out of it we got our 3rd gemstone. And before we actually went back to that weird wall, I decided to explore doing a few more battles to try and get 100 gems. But this battle here was actually where I used the spear attack on Pearl for the first time, and it was actually a pretty cool attack because you get to aim it wherever you want, and letting go it dealt an insane 22 damage to the enemy, which if there was multiple enemies it actually would have done 22 damage to both of them if it hit both. But there is 2 downsides to it, one of which if you miss you literally deal 0 damage, and 2 it costs 4 star points to use. So it's definitely a very situational but powerful move. Oh, and you might have seen there that we leveled up Amethyst and chose Harmony for her. Afterwards going back to the shop and buying the badge, which for now I ended up attaching to Garnet, and then we ran back to that wall, finally placing all 3 of the gemstones, which as we expected opened the wall up. And this led me to another area, first of which was another wall with another gemstone to place in it, but this time it required a red gemstone, which Garnet told us that we wouldn't find the red gemstones in these caves and would just have to come back later after we find them in different areas, leading us to our first stage that we couldn't actually 100%, but this was by the game's design and we would get that 100% later on. So we stepped on and made it to the boss stage of this area, which at first just seemed like a baby scorpion, even smaller than the other scorpions that we'd seem to be battling. But this of course wasn't the boss, and the cave started shaking, and then some black bars appeared and an insane looking scorpion jumped in, which of course was the boss of this area. And just like that our battle had begun. To explain this boss, it has its main face crystal that has its health, and then like you saw there's its tails that work separately, which the strategy for this boss is trying to take down those tails as soon as possible, because the more tails it has, the more attacks it's actually able to deal to us. And scared of what these attacks might do, I used 2 of Steven's gems, shield bubbles on Garnet and Pearl, as they were my two characters that I wanted to protect, and sadly of course I didn't have enough stars for Amethyst. And it was good I used the shield bubble on Garnet because one, they popped the bubble dealing 0 damage, but then the second attack also hit Garnet dealing 11 damage. And you might have noticed there that the attack the boss dealt didn't give me a defensive star, so I couldn't really protect myself against it. Oh, and Pearl's spear attack was very good against this boss because you could usually hit 2 or more things with it, and then you could use your 1-star basic attack to deal some more damage to its main health, which everything I described there was basically the cycle of this battle. I would attack with Pearl's spear, and then the boss would charge up its attack, which then would lead me to use shield bubbles on my team, preventing full damage, which is exactly why the shield bubble is the most important and overpowered technique in the game. And then the cycle would repeat until eventually about 6 minutes later where he spawned in another purple scorpion, but the boss itself was also extremely low, so using one more basic attack with Pearl I was able to take it down, getting myself a ton of gems and a ton of items. Oh, and most importantly the XP, which leveled up Steven, giving me the option between a wallet upgrade, unlocking an escape option, and then also upgrading my encourage move, which the encourage move is the one that gives HP to the gems. And for now I literally had no idea which one to choose, so I ended up just choosing the encourage upgrade, running into 3 reward chests for defeating the boss, and then moving on to the podium where we got this achievement that said unlock a gauntlet stage, and the gauntlet stages you'll see towards the end of the video. And as we're about to move on to the next area, you'll see that the caves area we only completed 62% of, because one, there's that gauntlet stage that I just mentioned that we have to complete, and then there's also a couple more secret areas that we have to explore, but those guys will come back to later, as there's now time to go to the second area. And looking around, it was an area full of strawberries, which Steven seemed to be familiar with. And talking to Pro, we mentioned that it was a gem battlefield, but I'm not gonna lie, this is where I feel like I should come clean. I've only actually seen 1 or 2 episodes of Steven Universe and literally have no idea about the lore. I was of course familiar with these 4 main characters, but the rest of it I have no idea. So if there's any references that I missed, please forgive me and mention them down in the comments so I can learn. But looking back at the game, we ran into some new enemies, this time being green, and the first one was completely obliterated using the spear, and I tried to catch the second one but kind of missed, which led to the defend phase. And the attacks of these guys are actually very annoying because you have to tap to get them to stop attacking, and I literally had no idea, so it ended up doing an insane amount of damage to my Garnet at first. But thankfully we had a surplus of stars, so I was able to heal up Garnet, and using one last basic attack from Pearl finished off the green enemy. Moving around, you could also tell that the enemies were getting more difficult as they started coming in bigger and bigger hordes, and this is where Amethyst does shine at first. But I'm not gonna lie, later on when we start leveling up the characters, Pearl and Garnet kind of just overpower her. Though I do think if the Ember badge that we put onto Amethyst had a better chance to apply the fire, she would have been much better, but for some reason the chance of the fire applying is very low. And after this battle we actually got a ton of XP leveling up both Pearl and Garnet, which for Garnet I chose the defensive stat up, and for Pearl I chose the attack one, which then exploring a little more we ran into this one room that started a mini cutscene with this green crystal plant thing, and I thought we were about to battle it, but then it summoned a copy of Pearl out of nowhere, which left her a little confused and kind of weirded out that she was about to have to fight herself, but it had to be done. And this green Pearl lookalike wasn't the main boss, but it was a mini boss, as using the defense lowering move at first and then also Pearl's basic attack, we see that it has a lot more health than our gems do, and it had the same exact moves dealing similar damage to us. The only good thing was that it couldn't double attack like we could. And also you could see by this point I kind of just started spamming Pearl's basic attack, as it only cost 1 compared to Garnet's 2, and overall it seemed to be more worth it for the amount of stars. So spamming the same move several more times, we eventually took down the Pearl copy, which after dropping a little bit of foreshadowing, Garnet mentions that we hadn't seen the last of that creature. But moving on from this chest, we got a green key which opened the light barrier that we'd seen in the first battle, and this directly led to the end of the stage. But as you can see, we're still missing one thing in the stage, so I started looking around a little bit, and eventually it was this dirt pile that I hadn't collected the item from, and the leaf shield badge that we got from it I equipped onto Garnet, and its effect was that green and blue enemies dealt 25% less damage to the gem holding that badge. So it was definitely worth it, since the enemies we're fighting in this entire area were green. And within the second stage of the second area, we found a green gemstone within this dirt pile that comes into play a little later on. But moving forward, we also ran into this wall that seemed like another puzzle, and if you look at the bottom left, you'll see that the answer to the puzzle is right there. In the correct order, you just have to click diamond, circle, triangle, and hexagon, which makes the shape start glowing and the door opens up. And going forward, there was for some reason another wall that was the same exact thing, but this time we didn't see the symbols on a wall anywhere. But moving left, we found a secret room that had them, with this time it being moon, diamond, circle, and star. And moving up and then right, this indigo prism light thing appeared out of nowhere, and Pearl tells Steven to stay back as these are formed from dangerous gem technology, which then the indigo thing tries to communicate with some weird language, and not being able to understand it, we just captured it with the prism. But moving over to the teleport pad, we still had a few more things that we needed to collect, one of which I found to the right of the teleport pad in a semi-secret room, and this gave us a lucky badge, which I don't equip here, but it's actually a pretty powerful one that I do apply later on. And for now, we still had 2 more hidden things to find, which at first we found a secret room, leaving 1 more thing for us to find, but that secret thing ended up being this gate that needed another red gem, and since we still didn't have any red gems, we couldn't walk through it, meaning we'd have to come back to this level in the future as well. But teleporting into the 3rd stage, we first ran into a shop where I decided to spend 83 gems to buy the 2 superstar fruit because my wallet was maxed out at 100 and I couldn't get any more gems, and fighting enemies felt like I was wasting gems since I wasn't getting any more. But either way, we ran into some more enemies with a new one in the back, and that guy is sort of the support of the light creatures, and it has the ability to heal its own team or do status effects to my team. So the goal was to always take it down first before the other enemies so that it couldn't heal, and then eventually defeat the other guys as well. This fight specifically leveled up Amethyst and Steven, which for Steven I leveled up the wallet upgrade because being able to carry 100 more light stones would be very handy, and for Amethyst I was a little unsure, so I ended up just giving her luck. But more importantly, as we moved to the right one space, we ran into a pretty dangerous looking enemy. It was like a huge green beetle, and this guy was definitely pretty tanky, as even with the defense down and Pearl's attacks, it still had a ton of HP remaining. Oh, and if you missed your block, it dealt a ton of damage, and it actually does have a second attack that it can do, but in this battle I was able to just take it out using Pearl's attack over and over again, so we didn't get to see it this time, but we will see it in a later battle. Oh, and there'd be these random dialogues where you could sort of choose who you wanted to give XP to, and for these usually I gave the XP to Pearl, mainly because I felt like she was the character carrying my team the most at this point. But moving a little left in the area, we ran into this battle, and this is where you get to see that attack of the beetle that I mentioned, and if you look at it, you'll see that it charged up there, which uses one of its turns, but then after our attacking phase, it does its charge attack right off the bat, and it just throws Amethyst out of my team, which at first I was a little confused here because Amethyst still had HP in the top right, but she was nowhere to be seen, and the reason for this is that she actually comes back after a few turns. So that move doesn't instantly destroy your characters, but it does prevent them from being used. Oh, and if you're curious, using a shield bubble completely prevents that move from doing anything. And eventually, using Pearl's attack, we took down the beetle, leveling up Pearl that got her a new attack named Hollow Pearl, which disables an enemy for 1, 2, or 3 turns, and the number is dependent on this wheel thing that pops up when you're battling, which 1 has the biggest area, 2 has a smaller one, and then 3 has the smallest. But I'm not gonna lie, that move is good, but it also has a very big downside, and you get to see that downside right here where I used Hollow Pearl on this big green beetle, even landing on the 3, but it turns out if you disable the enemy, which means that they can't do anything, the next time you attack the enemy, it actually undisables them. So at this point, it only made sense in my mind to use it on bosses, but I did end up using it on a boss later on, and it seemed like all the bosses were immune to it, making the move a little useless, but it can be a little helpful if there's only 1 enemy remaining, and it allows you to stall it out so you can use Steven to heal up all your characters. But to be completely honest, I never end up doing that, and eventually spamming Pearl's moves, I took down the big green beetle and leveled up Garnet, this time choosing to give her a harmony up. And exploring a little more, I found another shop where I saw this white star fruit, and at the time I thought that it kind of just sucked, but later on I realized that I should have bought it here because it ends up being a pretty powerful item, but that'll make sense later on as well. As for now, I was progressing through the stage, finding all the secrets and the chests and the green gemstones, and eventually I made it to the end of this stage, having found 10 chests, but there's still 2 secret things that I missed, and I'm not gonna lie, I tried to find them, but with no luck, I eventually came back and just moved on to the 4th stage, which right off the bat had a light barrier to the right, and then moving left, we ran into this enemy carrying a strawberry, which the strawberry acted as a shield, so we had to use Garnet's shield breaker to take it down, and this would turn the enemy into a very easy opponent. We had some other battles like this one with the big beetle and 2 support enemies, but using attacks like the spear and Pearl's basic, we took them all down, which leveled up Steven, Pearl, and Amethyst. And for Steven, we had a very overpowered upgrade, and that was upgrading the shield bubble to 2, which reduces his cost from 2 to 1. For Pearl, I chose the luck upgrade, and this was intentional, and you'll see why. Then lastly, for Amethyst, I chose luck as well. That one was a little less intentional. Oh, I also found another green gemstone in this dirt pile, which you'll see where the green gemstones get used in this level. But for now, we ran into this area where that one enemy appeared again, but this time it summoned a copy of Amethyst, which was probably the most annoying one of the 3 that it could summon, because Amethyst is able to hit all 3 of your characters and get a second attack off as well. And you saw right there that it did a pretty insane amount of damage since I missed my block, so I was gonna have to take her down as quick as possible. But then then for some reason the second time she attacked, she actually didn't do a second bonus attack, which might have been because I got the block off on the first one, but it doesn't matter too much as we eventually took her down, obtaining the green key that we're looking for from this chest, eventually making it back to the light barrier and opening it up. And then we found a secret room in the bushes which contained a chest giving me another badge. And this badge was pretty good because it gave me a 30% chance to resist all negative effects like burning and poison. This was also when I replaced the XP badge on Pearl with the luck badge, and that luck badge increases her luck by 50%, which right now isn't too much, but like I mentioned, I was upgrading her luck with intention, and that intention was so that luck badge would have more of an effect later on. And I haven't really mentioned what luck does, but you might have already seen it within the battles, and basically it gives you a chance to do a critical hit dealing nearly double the damage. And using the strategy, we're able to do insane amounts of damage later on. There's actually even a luck badge later on that increases my luck by 95%. But moving forward, I also gave Garnet the immunity badge and left Amethyst with the Ember badge as it seemed like the best one we still had for her. There was also this battle that we had with the Strawberry opponent and the Green Beetle, which if you look behind them, you'll see a white light glowing, meaning there's a secret room there. And so after defeating them, we made our way into that secret area, finding a hidden shop. And in this hidden shop, we found two pretty cool things. One, of course, was the first red gem that we found that would allow us to get into a secret entrance. And then to the left of the red gem, there was a level up charm. And you can think of that level up charm kind of like a rare candy from Pokemon. It allows you to just level up one of your characters whenever you want. But for now, we didn't have enough coins to get both of them, so I chose to go with the red gem. Oh, and looking at the screen here, you can see that this was where all the green gems went. Where at this point, I didn't know how many I'd found, so I started placing them into the wall. And it turned out I'd only found 4 out of the 5. So I explored the stage a little more, trying to find that last one, but I returned with no luck. So for now, I decided to go on to the 5th stage. And within it, we first ran into a shop that didn't really have anything we were looking for. But then I got to this area where a cutscene started and the plant thing appeared again. And I thought it was only going to summon Garnet, which it did. But then the other 2 gems appeared as well, meaning unknowingly, we'd actually just run into the boss of this entire area. And I'm not gonna lie, this was probably one of the more difficult bosses of the entire game, as all our opponents are just super powered versions of ourselves. And just like we have Steven, they also have that thing in the back supporting them with heals or poisoning our team. Also, up until this point, I wasn't using too many of the items that we had, mostly because we didn't really need them, and I was kind of just saving them for difficult battles, which I realized this exactly was that. So I kind of started just spam using my items every single turn. And to be honest, my main goal here at first was taking down Amethyst before anything else, as she was the most threatening enemy, and she made the shield bubble move with Steven a lot less usable, because whenever I used the shield bubble, she would just one-shot it, and then Garnet and Pearl would just do extra damage to me. But eventually, using Pearl's attack, I was able to take down Amethyst, making this battle infinitely easier as I was able to use the shield bubble to its full strength, which though it almost made it impossible to lose any of our characters, it was still taking a very long time to take down the other opponents. And eventually, after about 2 more minutes, I was able to take down the Pearl replica, meaning the last one left was Garnet. But then this thing happened where my Amethyst was poisoned, she didn't have a shield bubble, and Garnet hit her with an insane attack where I missed both of my blocks, getting her down to 3 health, and then the poison finished her off, leaving her gem just floating there. And though there are items that would allow me to revive her, I decided to be better if I use items like the Beefy Sweatband, which increased a gem's attack on Pearl, and then also the Lucky Crown, which gave a 2x chance for lucky hits for 5 turns, which if you look at the opponent Garnet, you'll see that her defense was also lowered using our Garnet's attack, meaning our Pearl was basically at her max potential for her level. And eventually, after spamming the same attack over and over again, I was finally able to take down Garnet, leaving the one main enemy in the back, who first we lowered the defense of using Garnet's attack, and then I continued to spam Pearl's basic attack over and over again. Oh, and also at this point we'd basically won because this enemy can't really deal damage, and it only deals status effects, which are very easily countered using Steven's heal ability. So eventually, after a grueling 10 minutes, the boss had finally been taken down. And that 10 minutes isn't even an exaggeration, it literally took me that long to beat this boss, but it was definitely fun. And we leveled up Steven, which this time I went with that far right upgrade of unlocking the Rose's tier badge, which gives the gem holding it a 25% chance to revive every turn after being defeated. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really put it to use, and my main reason for unlocking it was because we needed it for the 100%. Garnet also leveled up, unlocking the rocket punch ability, and this is a pretty cool move which you'll get to see in battle. And lastly, we had Pearl level up, which I of course put into luck. Oh, and since this was the first time one of my gems died, you can see that they revive after the battle that they died in. The only downside is that they have very low health and are usually glowing red. Of course, we can just heal them using one of our items. Oh, and this chest also gave me another red gemstone. But with that, since we've beaten the boss of this area, it meant it was time to move on to the next one, which again, we'd only completed 55% of this area, but we'd be coming back to it later for the 100%. The third area you can probably already tell by the picture drawn on the map. It's a desert landscape that creates desert themed enemies, which the first is these cobras, which at first they were a little dangerous because they attacked you twice, but later on, once you learn their pattern, they become very easy to block, making them a simple enemy to go up against. There's also these orange fireflies, and their attack was simply putting debuffs on our characters. Also, I wasn't really paying attention within this battle, so I did end up losing Pearl at the start of it. I actually even lost Amethyst to the same reason. And then using Garnet's new move that costs 5 stars, you get to aim your 2 gloves in certain areas, and at the center of that area, it deals a ton of damage, but then also in a little area around it, it deals a little bit of damage to the other enemies. So it's pretty good for group settings. And also after Pearl and Amethyst came back alive, I used this thing called a Together Breakfast that restores the team's entire harmony, because if I lost them that early on, I was definitely going to need them at full power for the next battles. Our next stop, however, was a shop where I first bought the Fire Salt item that apparently can block the burn effect from enemies, and then I also bought the Superstar Fruit, as they're just good to have in any situation. We then ran into this pretty dangerous horde of 5 enemies, where first I used Garnet's Rocket Punch ability and got 2 of the enemies pretty low, where then within our next attack phase, I used Pearl's basic attacks to start finishing them off. And honestly, it worked out pretty well because we got them down to 3 enemies by the end of the turn. And after the defense phase, Amethyst had gotten pretty low, but I was still more so just focused on the offensive because I felt like it was more beneficial to deal with them first instead of healing her first. And because of this reason, we did eventually lose her within the battle, but then we're able to finish off the last Cobra as well. And honestly, if there was a downside to losing one of your gems within the battle, I would have tried to protect her. But as there's literally no downside and she comes back right after we win the battle, it ends up being worth it just to sacrifice her. Oh, and I also didn't need to use an item to heal their harmony as we'd found a pool to heal them up. Our next stop was this orange light barrier, which we already had the key for that we found from a chest, and this led directly to the end of the stage, which we'd 100% completed. The second stage gave us 3 choices of either first going left, up, or right, and I ended up choosing left, which gave Amethyst XP. Within this area, we found 2 dirt piles with items, a cobra, and 3 fireflies, which we took down pretty easily, this time not losing any of our gems, leveling up Pearl and adding it into luck again. There's also this little area which first had a dirt pile with an orange key, and then if you look to the right, you'll see an orange gem within a rock, which like every other gemstone, this would be used to open up a door. But for now, we ran into this battle where there was a firefly and this huge turtle looking thing, and this exactly is where Garnet's shield breaking abilities become extremely important, because if you don't take the shield off its back, this guy is extremely tanky, but after breaking its shield and lowering its defense, it becomes an enemy that's pretty easy to beat. And thankfully, since this guy is more of a tank, its attacks don't deal too much damage either, and eventually we took him down, leveling up Steven and unlocking the Ukulele Cure song, which if you looked at its description, it removes your entire team's status effects, and since those fireflies are pretty annoying in this area, I thought it'd be a good move to have, but to be completely honest, I never end up really using it. Oh, another important thing was this chest up here, which inside of it, I found a recharge badge, and this badge every turn restores 5 harmony on the gem that's wearing it, so it's a pretty overpowered one. And for now, since Garnet and Pearl already had some pretty good badges, I decided that it only made sense to give it to Amethyst. Afterwards, we ran into another big turtle, and spamming the same strategy that we did earlier, we took it down. There was this other enemy within the desert that was this orange chameleon, and this guy was extremely annoying because most of the time it attacked Steven, taking one of your items from your inventory, and then if you look at it, you'll see that it went invisible, meaning we basically couldn't attack it with basic moves, but if we use a move like Garnet's Rocket Punch that does splash damage, you are actually able to deal damage to it even if it's invisible. Oh, and the good thing is, after defeating it, it also drops all the items that it took from you, which was a very big save as you run into a ton of them and they steal a lot of items from you. And if they were to just completely take them, not giving them back, the chameleon would definitely be the worst enemy in the game, but that wasn't a problem. And eventually, after beating this battle, we leveled up Amethyst, unlocking the Purple Puma attack. This was a medium damage dealing attack and it lowered the enemy that you hit's attack as well. But again, this was a move that I never really used as all the other moves were just better. Oh, and you might have seen there that I found an orange key within that chest, and using it on this light barrier, we ran into this wall that needed those orange crystals that we were finding. But again, I'd only found 3 and there's still 2 orange crystals that I was missing. And for now, I decided that it wasn't worth my time because I might find them in other stages, so I moved on to the next stage. Within the third stage, we first ran into a shop that again had another level up charm and another badge. And this badge made it to where if we had a lucky hit, there was a chance that that lucky hit would disable the enemy attacking it, which in theory sounded really good since I was specializing Pearl in luck, but it ends up being not that good. Though for now, in this stage, I found this area with 3 dirt piles, with 1 giving us a level up charm, and then I'd actually made it to the end of the stage, but there was still 1 secret thing that we were missing, and in hopes of finding it, we ran into these enemies, who we eventually took down, leveling up Pearl and getting a pretty pretty important upgrade on her, which was unlocking a second badge slot. And this at the time was very important since we just found that badge that combos well with her luck and the luck badge that she already had equipped. So of course it was a no-brainer that we picked it. But then I also took the chance here to use both of my luck charms on leveling up Pearl, which the first one gave me probably my favorite attack in the entire game, named the Fireball, and you'll see why it was my favorite. And then the second level up gave me a stat increase or the choice to upgrade the Hollow Pearl ability, but the luck just seemed more important at this time. Afterwards I went back to the teleport pad and saw that there was still that thing missing, but for some reason I literally looked around forever and still couldn't find the thing that I was trying to find, even though the stage was minuscule, and in the end decided I'd come back here and just went to the next stage. But you're gonna see that this was sort of a glitch or something, because after coming back to this stage I didn't find anything else new, but then the stage said it was 100% completed. Maybe it was just a game mechanic I was unsure of, but I definitely had no idea even after I completed the game. But moving on to the fourth stage, this one was pretty weird as it was a very open area and you could travel in any direction you wanted to, compared to all the previous stages where there's sort of a linear path that you had to follow. And for the most part, all the enemies we're going up against were the ones we'd already been introduced to. The only major difference was the combinations that they came in. Most specifically this battle. This battle, just looking at the combination of enemies, you can feel the threat, and this was probably the longest non-boss battle that we had in the entire game. This battle alone took nearly 9 minutes, and my first move within it was using 3 stars to take down this firefly in the front, and then being scared of all the other enemies, I put 2 shield bubbles, one on Pearl and one on Garnet. Also, I completely wasted my next attack turn by using Garnet's rocket punch because both of them landed directly on top of the turtles, doing 1 damage each because of their shells, and they missed all of the other enemies. This was when my eyes opened up to the fact that I needed to take down the shells of the turtles before trying to deal damage to them, because if you saw right there, even the spear attack basically dealt no damage. But of course the main enemy I was trying to take down with it was the firefly in the back, and I succeeded after using one more basic attack, with my next target being the Cobra very up top, but I couldn't finish him off as I didn't have any more stars. And this was a huge problem as Pearl had a defense down with 9 health, so the Cobra ended up taking me down even though I blocked both of his attacks. And then the Chameleon attacked Garnet instead of Steven, taking Garnet down to 6 health as well, leaving my least powered attacker Amethyst at full health. And right now if you look at the bottom of the screen, you're gonna see a message that says not enough harmony, and that was because I tried to use Garnet's shield breaker attack, but of course I didn't have enough harmony to use it. And that's where that second thing of harmony comes into play. In this game you literally need to have a certain amount of health to be able to use the more powerful moves, and this was never a problem in all the earlier battles because none of the enemies were that threatening, but it starts coming into play a lot more from here on out. Oh, and right here I did use a Rose's tier item to bring back Pearl from the dead, but it only gives her 10 health to start off. And then there's this thing where I tried to finish off that Cobra in the very top, but since the turtle's hitbox was so big I kept on missing the Cobra. Like I literally don't know how this was happening because I was clicking directly on the Cobra, even trying to click way above it, but it still kept on hitting the turtle. So in the end I decided to try and attack the Chameleon instead, which thankfully did work, but I couldn't do much else since I'd already used my item for the turn and had to let them attack. And I nearly lost Pearl again, but thankfully she survived with 2 health. So my first move was encouraging Pearl with Steven, giving her 15 harmony, and then trying to use my last 3 stars to take out the Chameleon, but it survived with a sliver of health. So here I decided to use a super star fruit, giving me 6 extra stars for the turn, which allowed me to finally take down the Chameleon. And then I would have liked to take down the Cobra, but since for some reason I couldn't hit it, I decided to take down the shield of the turtle blocking it, and then just started targeting the turtle, eventually taking it down on my next attack turn, finally being able to attack the Cobra as well. And using a couple attacks, the Cobra was easily taken down, and I got an achievement for defeating 100 prism creatures. I thought that'd be pretty cool to mention. Oh, and also since we only had one more turtle left, it became very easy to finish off, and we had eventually won. And thankfully we were rewarded with some pretty decent XP. And leveling up Steven, I chose another wallet upgrade, and for Amethyst I chose a defense upgrade, which this led me to the teleport pad, but we'd barely done anything in this stage, yet stage 3 was still bothering me, so I decided to teleport back to it. And like I mentioned, I didn't find anything new within this stage, but more importantly I was able to buy the badge from the shop. And then there's this little battle which I got an important upgrade for Garnet that was the second badge slot, and afterwards, like I mentioned, for some reason the stage had been 100% completed, and I'm assuming the only thing that could have completed it was me buying that badge from the shop, but I'm not too sure as there's a lot of items that I completely skipped over in previous stages, but I still got 100% on the stage. But if you do know, let me know in the comments. Oh, and afterwards I of course went back to stage 4 as we had a ton of it still to explore, and after winning this first battle we got a level up for Pearl, this time giving me an option to upgrade that fireball ability, which the description for it says that it adds lingering damage, which in simpler terms just means that it puts a burn effect on the enemy. Oh, there's also skeletons within the desert that give you items, which I got a poison badge out of that one, and the poison badge is basically like the ember badge from before, but this one doesn't affect green enemies. Oh, and to be completely honest, I actually don't know if poison has a different effect from burn. I feel like there's gotta be like a attack decrease or a defense decrease on the enemy, but I never really figured it out. But moving on, we found a big gate that had the shape puzzle, but this time the shapes weren't very close by, and for now we actually left it alone because while in this pool area, I swiped to the right and found another secret area that had a gate that used a red gem, so I put the red gem in it, and this led me to a secret warp pad, which at this point I wasn't too familiar with, so I kind of just took it as I thought that maybe it teleported me directly to the boss or something. But come to find out, the secret warp pads teleport you to some secret stages within the area. They're not really like the Super Mario Brothers secret launchers that let you skip a ton of worlds, but that would have been cool if it was. Oh, the secret area also had some mini turtles, but the mini turtles were still just as tanky as the bigger ones, so they still took a while to deal with, but the battles did give some decent XP. Oh, and to explain the secret stages a little more, there isn't really anything to explain. They're basically the same as the normal stages, but just an extra area to explore. There's nothing really extra special within them, just more loot to find. And there was some pretty good loot because this first chest that I opened up gave me a level up charm, and the second chest gave me a pretty good badge named the Super Harmony badge. And this one was another healing badge, but this badge's heal was pretty crazy because every turn there was a small chance that the gem holding it fully restored its harmony. So I instantly put this onto Pearl because I'd realized that disable luck badge didn't really do anything. Oh, and I'd also given Amethyst the poison badge just to test it out, and lastly replaced Garnet's immunity badge with the healing badge that gives 5 harmony every turn. So the badge loadout for the gems was looking pretty good, and after some more battles I leveled up Steven again, this time unlocking the escape ability because it popped up so many times and I thought at this point it would be worth it to get it. And the escape ability basically lets you run away from a battle if you don't want to do it, but there is a small chance that it fails. Oh, and I also used a level up charm on Garnet here, which got her a new attack named the 6-hit combo. And this one in theory sounds very good, but you'll soon see why it was one of my least favorite attacks. Oh, and more importantly, we'd 100%ed the secret stage, and so I decided to teleport to the boss stage, but then checking around I found another secret gate that took a red gem and inserted the red gem, taking me to another secret portal, which also showed me that I'd 100%ed the boss stage, but that wasn't actually true since I didn't beat the boss yet, though I still did take the portal, leading me to another secret area where again it was just battles and loot gathering, and I got another level up on Pro, again putting it into luck, and then I also rearranged a bunch of my badges again, for some reason giving Garnet the luck and the super harmony badge, giving Pro the luck disabling badge and the normal harmony badge, and lastly giving Amethyst the revive badge. I'm not gonna lie, looking at that lineup after beating the entire game, I have no idea why that's what I chose, but it does definitely show that I was still learning the game as I went on, because that badge orientation was honestly horrendous. It didn't really make sense giving Garnet the luck badge since her luck stat was very low, but it is what it is. And eventually I did 100% the secret stage that finally led me back to the boss stage, and going in the right direction this time, a mini cutscene like thing began where a huge dinosaur started walking towards us, or at least something that was shaped like a dinosaur, and as the battle began, this thing was insanely tanky. Even with its defense lowered, we barely did any damage using Pearl's attacks, and I'm gonna be completely honest, I couldn't even see the exact damage we're doing since the dinosaur was so big and then the character icons above it were blocking the numbers. The dinosaur though did have 2 different attacks, one of which was this asteroid-like thing that always hit all 3 of our gems, and then it had an unblockable laser beam that targeted one of your gems. But that laser beam was the one that we always hoped for because it was easily negated using the shield bubble, and eventually using enough shield bubbles and attacks, I got its health down to about half, and right here was when I decided to use the 6-hit move with Garnet, but for some reason you have to time all the attacks, and by that I mean there's always a star that appears after one punch, and to actually get all 6 hits off you have to time the stars perfectly, so it's a very high risk medium reward type of attack. And eventually I decided to just not use it anymore and instead use my favorite attack that I'd found out within this battle, which was Pearl's fireball attack, because you could just aim it anywhere you wanted and the fireballs attacked 3 times individually, dealing a pretty insane amount of damage as well. Oh, and of course on top of the damage that it already deals, it leaves the burn effect, and with one more fireball attack I dwindled the dinosaur's health down to 0, but then it summoned a huge asteroid attack that kind of wiped out my team, or it was supposed to, and Pearl kind of glitched out, but just imagine that she's very low on HP, because it leads to this where Pearl tries to motivate Steven, so then Steven heals the entire team, even bringing back Amethyst, and even tells the gems that they can do it if they work together, which Garnet replies with Steven's right, we need to synchronize, and this worries Pearl a little bit, but they knew it was the right thing to do, so then Garnet says gems fuse up, and we're directed to tap one of the gems and click a certain move, taking us to this cutscene. That was pretty cool if you ask me, and this also defeats the dinosaur, giving us a ton of stones and items. Oh, and of course level ups, which for Steven I unlocked the Strong Song move, a move that increases your team's power, and I gave Garnet luck, and this had meant that we'd actually 100% of the stage, and it was time to move on to the next world even though we'd only completed 77%, but like the other two, we'd be coming back to this one as well. And this underwater area actually ends up being the easiest world of the entire game, and it's because of one cool thing where I initially thought that that move that the game showed us at the end of the last area was just for that certain boss and that we wouldn't get to use it again, but for some reason the game permanently unlocked it for us, letting us use it once per battle, and that once per battle isn't really that much of a restriction because the attack solos basically any enemy that we go up against. There of course are some very big requirements that you need to meet in order to use the move, but if you prepare well enough it actually becomes pretty easy, and the requirements in question are: 1, you need 9 star points, which is either possible by saving them for 2 turns because the star points carry over to the next turn, or just using one of the star fruits to get up to 9. And the second requirement is having all of your gems at full health, and that's all you need to use the fusion move. And the health, you might be thinking, is a pretty difficult requirement to meet, but if you remember, you can use healing items outside of battle, so if you just go into the battle fully healed, it's not a very difficult thing to achieve at all. Oh, and since we've already made it to the second stage of this area, I should start explaining the enemies, one of which is the jellyfish that you see in front, and that guy, if it hits you and you aren't able to block perfectly, it ends up stunning your character for 1 turn. The other 2 enemies in the back are pufferfish, which basically use 1 turn to puff/charge up, and in this state if you attack them with a normal move you actually take damage yourself, but since I was basically just relying on the fireball and its long range, I didn't take any damage from them. But there's also of course the second thing the puff up does, and that's shooting an energy ball at one of your characters, which you want to make sure to block because they do deal decent damage, though again Pearl's fireball attack was kind of destroying him. There was also the starfish enemy, which was probably my least favorite of the water area, mainly because they shot at you a consecutive 3 times and it was very difficult to time the defensive block, so I'd end up losing a ton of health every time they attacked me, even completely losing Pearl in this battle. But thankfully they didn't have too much health, so they're pretty easy to take down. Oh, I also got a Steven level up, which I upgraded in Courage to level 3, giving it 5 extra harmony that it recovers. There's this shop that I bought a lucky poison badge from, another badge that I don't really use, and then I made it into this little area where I ran into a yellow prism light, but this time before I could get it, the prism actually ran off, so we tried to chase after it, and after winning another battle we got a Pearl upgrade and upgraded its quick strike to level 2. The quick strike is Pearl's most basic ability, so that was actually a pretty decent upgrade to get. I also had 2 luck charms that I decided to use on Pearl again. The first one I put into harmony, giving Pearl 40 health in total, and the second level up I put into luck, bringing it up to 15. We also ran into another new enemy, which was that anglerfish looking thing in the back, and this one gave its teammates shield bubbles, so nothing too difficult to deal with as the shield bubble only blocked 1 attack and the fireball did 3. Afterwards we got an upgrade for Garnet and I put it into luck. There was this one battle where we're up against 4 jellyfish and ended up using the fusion attack again, completely just obliterating all 4 in a few of the hits with many more unnecessary ones. And then there's also this symbol puzzle door that I found, which the answer for it was a little farther away, and you find it right here towards the left of the screen. This one, though definitely still not difficult at all, was one of the more annoying ones because 1, it had 6 symbols, and 2, I had to walk a pretty far path, meaning there was potential that I'd forget it, but remembering the order of 6 symbols is pretty easy. And behind this gate was when that yellow light appeared again, and something really weird happened where when it tried to communicate we heard a Y in there, but more so it seemed like it was only Steven that heard it, as the gems didn't have a reaction to it and they just wanted us to capture it, so that's exactly what we did. And even though we'd only completed the stage 50%, I needed a red gem to access a different part of the stage, so I decided to go on to the next one for now. This stage was no different from the previous ones where I just spammed the big fusion ability, obliterating all the bosses, finding different types of loot, and eventually getting 100% for this stage, which very quickly led us to the boss stage of this area. And the boss of this area was a gigantic whale that fell down, and to be completely honest, this battle difficulty wise wasn't very difficult. The only real thing was that the boss was extremely tanky, but it didn't deal nearly enough damage damage to really be a threat. So eventually with one final fireball shot, I was able to take it down, getting a few level ups on Garnet and Pearl. And the important level up was Pearl because it made me upgrade Fireball to 3, which increases damage even further. I was honestly surprised that that was the upgrade available to us because Fireball was already pretty overpowered. But moving forward, since this stage had been completed, it was now time to make my way over to the next area. And I didn't really know what the specific setting for this place was. All I did know was that it looked very scary. Oh, and right off the bat, I got this cool badge which increased the attack of one of the gems by 15, so I placed down to Pearl. And then getting into our first battle, I saw that we were going up against those scorpions from the first area again, which seemed to be the theme of this place. But before I explain that, we also saw this mural on the wall showing the big pointy prism guy from the very first cutscene of the game, and Pearl mentions that it depicts a gem war, which Garnet replies with sad, and Pearl goes on to explain that in ancient times the prisms were used for war, as warriors of light that marched across the battlefield, which didn't sit right with Steven as he just wants peace, and Pearl says that his mother thought the same way. And moving back to the battles and the theme of the area, like I mentioned, we were actually just going up against all the enemies we'd already seen previously, but this time of course we had the fusion attack on our side and completely obliterated them all in one turn. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know why it's allowed. It literally makes all the normal battles very trivial, but eventually I got the red key that we needed from this chest, opening this red light barrier that led us to the teleport pad, showing us that we 100%ed the stage. Within the next stage, we found a red gem in a wall, and this was an important find since we'd recently used our red gems in the desert, but we still needed more red gems for the levels in area 2. There was also this shop that I ran into, which I completely bought out since I had a surplus of stones and not much else to spend on. There was also a battle against a red beetle, who of course still had that annoying attack of knocking one of your characters away from the battle, meaning I had to start using Garnet instead of Pearl, but then eventually Pearl did come back and I was able to finish off the beetle using her basic attack. And with a bunch more exploring, we'd 100%ed stage 2. Stage 3 starts off with a very important shop containing another red gem that we needed to buy, but we didn't have the 100 stones needed, so we'd come back for it. And so I started battles against more creatures, and this specific battle shows you just how tanky the turtles are with their shell up, because I used the fusion attack on it and it still somehow survived with half of its health left. This was literally the first enemy that had survived the attack, but this also made me realize that the fusion attack gives the enemies a defense and a power down, so it was even better than I had originally thought. And eventually we took down the huge turtle, getting all the stones that we needed, and headed over to the shop to buy the red gem. And that was basically the important things of the stage, and we'd 100%ed it, which this was one of the good things about this area, because it seemed like I didn't need to come back to any of the different stages and I was just 100%ing them as I went along. But I did speak a little too soon there, because within the boss stage I found a secret door that needed another red gem, and since we had 2, I placed the red gem in and sort of just headed into the secret stage. Within it we found a bunch of chests, but most importantly we found this shop that contained a Garnet badge, which increases all of Garnet's stats by 15%, but sadly I didn't have enough currency for it and ended up just not buying it for now and just headed on to the next stage. And this next stage had something that was even better than the Garnet badge, and it was named the Lion's badge, which increases all stats and harmony of the gem wearing it by 30%. So it was pretty insane. But looking at the badges, this was also when I took the time to rearrange a lot of them. And if you look at Pearl right now, you'll see that she has 38 luck, and that was mainly due to the badge on the right, because that was the badge that I mentioned way earlier on that increases the luck stat by 95%, in return cutting your defense in half. But since Pearl only had a defense of 3, it wasn't that big of a deal. So in the end, Garnet had the Lion's badge and the Super Harmony badge. Pearl had the Luck badge, but also the Ice badge, which makes you deal 50% more damage to red enemies, and that of course was perfect for this area. Also lastly, I gave Amethyst the normal Harmony badge and then also the Immunity badge, which afterwards, fighting some more enemies, we eventually made it to the end of this secret stage, 100%ing it as well, leaving a little bit more to go before the boss battle. And we also ran into another mural, and Garnet mentions that the ancient gems in this mural were powerful beings, and then Steven comments with "just like us, right?" which then Garnet gives a weird smile saying right. There was also some more symbol puzzles, more chests being opened, till eventually we 100%ed this stage, and this led us to the final main stage of this game, where this 3-headed Hydra looking enemy appears, and then Steven says that he feels funny, leading to him glowing and the prism being sucked out of him and transported into the Hydra, which transforms the Hydra into that big spiky enemy named White Light. And everyone kind of panics here a little bit because this guy seems genuinely strong, but then Steven says that he believes in us, initiating the battle. And my first move, of course, within the battle was getting my stars up to 9 using a super star fruit, and then using the fusion attack, which did a pretty insane amount of damage, getting the boss down about 1/4 of its health. But then it performed this one bowling ball like energy ball attack attack that dealt 36 damage to my Garnet because I mistimed the defense, but then you can see right there that the Super Harmony badge completely healed her up to full health. And though I already mentioned that you can only use the fusion move once per battle, by this point I had no idea that that was actually a real rule, so I tried to heal my Garnet up to full health and then use a white star fruit, which makes your next move cost 0, even the fusion move. But then sadly I got that message saying that the gems can only fuse once per battle, so I knew I was gonna have to start spamming my fireball attack, which also did a pretty insane amount of damage, nearly the same amount as the fusion attack because it crit every single time. And the next attack White Light performed was very similar to the one the dinosaur performed in the desert, shooting meteorite-like attacks at all 3 of my characters. But when it was time for me to attack, the team was still looking pretty healthy, and I started off by lowering its defense again, afterwards giving Pearl a beefy sweatband, increasing her attack for 5 turns, also using Steven's Encourage to heal her up to full, and the last one of the combo was of course the shield bubble to keep her protected, and the other 2 as well. And this worked out pretty well as he did his bowling ball attack and only went for Garnet, expending 1 shield bubble, and the other 2 were still protected. My next step was using the fireball attack again, which the first hit did 68 damage, but the next 2 only did 0. And that's because we're going into a scripted cutscene where the white light monster says why. Definitely still a little confusing as to why they were talking. And so using Steven Universe, I asked, "Did you just speak?" And then Pearl questioned, "What, the monster?" Which then Steven replies with, "Yeah, you didn't hear it," it said. But before he could finish, we were interrupted by Garnet saying look out as the monster was about to attack again. Though in context, this didn't really make much sense since it's still our turn to attack. And after using a superstar fruit, I used the fireball again, blitzing down his health another 200 points because of the crits. And then the white light started talking again, saying, "Are you testing me?" Which was much more than the simple why we previously got. And I went with the question of testing you, which seemed to be the correct option to pick there. And then Amethyst also chimes in asking who Steven's talking to, but Steven's still distracted by white light and questioning what's really happening, which resumes the battle, and this time white light is an indigo color. And I should mention that I was changing colors throughout the battle, but I literally have no idea what the color changing did because I think I was blitzing his health down way faster than the game expected. But anyways, I continued attacking, which did make me realize that the blue form of it was the heavily defensive form, since we're only dealing 50 damage with crit hits using the fireball. But then as we nearly fully took it down, it sort of raged, turning into the yellow color, and then said something odd, which was, "I'm sorry, I failed you." And here we had 2 options with Steven, either choosing "what do you mean" or "it's gonna be okay." And I chose the "what do you mean" option, which seemed to be the wrong option for some reason. So we engaged in the battle again, and this time after dealing more damage, we got to that same scenario, this time choosing the "it's gonna be okay" option. And Garnet here finally realizes that Steven is communicating with it, and it asks, "What do you want from me?" Which gets Steven's brain juices going, and he references how Pearl said at the beginning that the prism was used to command an army of light, and she said that yes, powerful gems could do this, which then they sort of put 2 and 2 together, realizing that all of the creatures that we'd been fighting up until this point were actually there to serve under Steven. And then white light says master, and we as Steven tell him that you don't have to fight, which makes it take some tick damage. And then trying to follow Steven's orders, it asks, "What do you want me to be?" In a normal Steven fashion, he answers, "Whatever you want, you can be anything," leading us into this final cutscene.
I believe in you!
Good job, Steve.
So definitely a beautiful message to end the game off with, but the game wasn't fully over for us as we still had to 100% all of the areas. And here's when I'm going to start speeding things up a little bit, as we already went through the main juicy part of the game, and now it's sort of just the cleanup phase to get that 100%. And the first thing I started off with was the gauntlet stage of the first area. And the gauntlet stage is basically just fighting a bunch of enemies, but you can't bring in any of your items from the outside, but you can find new items inside the gauntlet. And as my characters were way over leveled for this gauntlet of the first area, I was kind of demolishing all of the enemies. There wasn't really much to talk about other than me just spamming the fireball move over and over again, and eventually making it to the end of the gauntlet, getting our completion percentage up to 74%, leaving 3 more stages left of this first area that we needed to 100%. The first one, we just needed to open up this red gemstone gate, and this actually got me the 100% for the stage, leaving just 2 of the secret stages left, which I was very quickly able to get the first 100% and then the second 100% as well. And just like that, the indigo caves had been completely 100% 100%ed, leaving 4 more areas to go. And for the strawberry fields, I again started off with this gauntlet, which was of course completed very easily, but afterwards I'd remembered that there was some red gates that I needed to open within this area, and I didn't have any more red gems left, so I decided to go over to the desert. But these stages were also confusing because I couldn't find the right gemstones anywhere. But there was stage 3-4, which I was able to 100% as it didn't have any weird things going on. And then I also headed into the gauntlet of the desert, completing it with a little bit more resistance from the creatures, but still nothing too difficult. And with that, we'd gotten a 96% completion on the desert, leaving just one more stage that we needed to fully 100%, but it was that one stage with the one orange gemstone that I was missing, so I decided that we'd come back to it later, and instead headed into the water world where I first got 100% on stage 4-2, and then along the way I'd found a red gemstone that I placed onto this wall, opening it up, but I hadn't fully gotten 100% here yet, and for some reason throughout the full playthrough I didn't have any problems except for right here where the game kind of just crashed out of nowhere. I don't really know why it happened, but I thought I'd just mention it because even though the game crashed, since we'd opened up the secret areas, I was able to tackle them first, eventually getting 100% on both of them, and then went into the gauntlet, which still was very easy to 100%. And this left one more stage for the water area that we needed to 100%. And there's only one mystery thing that we're missing in it, which I believe again was this protection badge within one of the shops, because after getting it, we got that 100% for stage 3, meaning the underwater world had also been completed. My next stop was stage 5-6 of the red world, which was a secret stage, and we're able to get that 100%, leaving just the gauntlet. And the toughest battle was probably this one with the super powered beetle, which even after blocking, its attack dealt 25 damage, taking down my pearl, but then my garnet was also very strong and was able to take it down, getting me that 100% in the gauntlet, meaning the red area had also been completed, leaving the strawberry fields and the desert. And I'm not gonna lie, I looked everywhere within stage 2-4 of the strawberry fields, but for some reason I just couldn't find that last green gem, again abandoning this area and going into the desert where we needed to just find one more orange gem to access that gate. And honestly, I thought I was going a little crazy as I just couldn't find it anywhere, but then I remembered that there was one place within the level that I hadn't tried to find a secret area within, and it was where the teleport pad was, and this ended up being the answer that got me the last orange gem. And this one was important to get the 100%, but also because the chest within it got me a red gemstone. Oh, and of course doing this we got the full 100% in the desert as well, meaning we just had the strawberry fields remaining. And at first I made my way over to the red secret area since we just found that red gemstone, and opening this area got me that 100% for stage 2-2, and completing the secret area got me the 100% for that stage. And now the only main problem was this one green gem on stage 2-4, which for a solid 10 minutes I looked around mindlessly, but then I stopped and looked back at earlier footage from this game to try to see where I found the first green gems, and it turned out that I actually had found some of them in stage 2-3, meaning that they weren't only just in stage 2-4, which explained a lot since I checked literally every corner of stage 2-4 and I couldn't find it. And then eventually when I made it back to 2-3, I found this dirt pile I hadn't looked through, and it had the green gem that we're looking for. And we actually still hadn't completed stage 2-3, and we'd come back to it because first we needed to open up this gate, and within this gate one of the chests contained another red gemstone, and this got us our 100% for stage 2-4, meaning the only thing remaining was first opening up the gate in stage 2-3, getting us the 100% for it, and then completing the very last secret stage, getting us that 100% on every stage achievement, meaning we'd 100%ed every single area in the game. Oh, and this of course meant that we'd also gotten every badge in the game as well. A lot of them I didn't even touch, but I was looking through them as I got interested in what they did. But that's basically it for the 100% of the game, as if you look at the very top, you'll see that the XP bars for my characters aren't filling anymore, and that just meant that I'd fully leveled them up to max level as well. So for some final thoughts, I really enjoyed the game, and you guys should let me know in the comments if you want me to play a Save the Light, as I've heard that it's actually a lot better than this one, and this game was genuinely really fun to play. But okay, enough yapping from me. Bye bye.